You were caught on the baby monitors. How's the volume, everybody? Is that okay? Um, map, map, map. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. I only had to drive 580 kilometers today to make it back to Prague. Excuses, excuses. I know. I am interminably late. Yeah, you all get to know me a little bit better. I strive to be on time always, but I fail miserably most of the time. Can you hear me okay? How's the volume? I don't have headphones, so it's hard for me to tell. Okay. Not laggy today, no. Back into the land of actual working Wi-Fi, i.e. not Germany. Old Father Time! We see, we hear, we ziggle. That's it. Hey ho, hey Meg. Hi Holly. I prefer Michael to be honest. Learn a little something about me today. Mike's okay, but Michael is preferred. Thank you. It seems a bit quiet. Let me turn this. Does this make it any louder? Am I closer to the mic? I can always go closer to the mic. You didn't lock Bubbling out in the garage? Well, that was a mistake. That's what I would have started with. All fine. Good stuff. Oh, hang on, actually. Yes, I can get some headphones. I can get headphones. Just bear with me. I know. We just sat down and I'm leaving already. Okay. How is this? Now I get an idea of what you guys are actually listening to. How? Nope. Oh, I don't hear anything. Nope, nothing through the headphones. Okay. I guess you can hear that all right. Okay, I give up. I give up on that. Whatever. If you can hear it okay, that's all I need to know. I'm going to get myself comfy. It's minus 10 degrees in Czechia. Depends on where you are in the Czech Republic. I don't think it is in Prague. I think we're hovering somewhere around -1 or something. We freeze. It's perfectly fine as long as you're close to the mic. Well, then I guess I get close to the mic, or the mic, or... Hey! Okay. So, how are we all today? We back into the swing of things, New Year's. I guess work starting for a lot of people tomorrow. Ooh, or school, or uni, maybe some of you. If you're at uni, I guess you might still have some time off. Please do Bubblina. Now you've been let back out of the garage. Yes, the calendar of 2026 New Year, because of course there are other New Years in the world. Work tomorrow. Yeah, me too. I guess that's where everyone's at. Are you asking me, Jar Jar D? I'm great. Yeah, as I say, I'm coming back from Germany today. Wish I'd had a little more time there, but that's how it goes. Lies of Misrule, calendar's a lie. Alright, Barbarian, watch this space, please. The Lords of Misrule may lie fallow at the moment, but that doesn't mean to say that we've gone away. Listen, I know that feeling. Yeah, you have to make a concerted effort to do all. I'm getting better at it as I get older. I just give less shits every year. It's nice to meet people and have parties, and then sometimes it's nice just to go. Actually, I need to sit down and do nothing. So, um, hmm. You finally have a free day tomorrow from work. Yes, grilled unicorn. I guess some people are working all the way through, aren't they? I think of people like nurses and doctors I know. And of course, actually a friend of mine, she was working on Christmas Day in England because she's a good doctor in the ER. So no rest there. Um, that's how it is. 6th and 7th are days off here at least. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, got the weekend coming up actually. Guess that Christmas and New Year's landed quite nicely. This lady stole my laundry time and gave me homemade marmalade to apologise. All right. How did she steal your laundry time? What do you have? Like, you take it in turns on the machine or something? Yes, freelance is very weird. It's never. It's hard to draw the boundaries. Uh, yeah, there we go. Please say positive words to a student who's going to have tons of the hardest part of high school. Enjoy it. You will look back at those years as some of the best of your life. I guarantee it. Hanging out with your mates or not, just chilling, no obligations other than some homework, which if you decide to do it, you can, and if you decide not to do it, what's going to happen? You fail, and then you get a job anyway, or not. Do what you like. Enjoy it. Don't stress about it. That would be my advice. Um, yeah, I like school. I enjoyed school very much. Just being mainly because I don't know if adulthood sucks, but certainly obligations get put on you, which can make it a little trickier. I think there are more pitfalls in adulthood. Would that be fair to say, rather than it sucks? I mean, paying the bills every month kind of gets a bit. Start tech for a show in 2 weeks, so just mentally preparing. Oh, nice. What show? House of Clouds. Where? When? What? Tell us about it. Mm, I was visiting my family, who I didn't get to see at Christmas. That's why I was in Germany. Nerd. Who's a nerd? Me? Maybe. Um, yeah, not everybody enjoys school. I get it. Um, yes, maybe so. I acknowledge that not everybody had a good time. I was lucky to find a good group of guys, and we just played cards every lunchtime, really. So we spent a lot of time just doing that. Um, there we go, Esther. There's some words of wisdom as well. Um, yeah. Of course, it's the author. Yes, of course, yes. Three Kings, 6th of January. Yes, that's why we're reading on Tuesday, because that's we're finishing the Christmas stories today and on the 6th. FYI, because we started a bit late today, I'm going to try and start a bit early on Tuesday, so get the word around. We'll start at 8 rather than 8:30 to make sure we've got enough time to finish it and chat. You can become a pirate as an adult. Yes, absolutely you can. The rules, by the way, I don't know who made them up, but they're all bollocks. Do what you like. That's what I've always tried to do. Is I tell you, being freelance sucks sometimes, and it's not for everybody. But at the same time, I've got into some pretty interesting work situations. Although a salary would be nice and paid holiday. Oh my God, when's the last time I had that? Um, I have advice: 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off. Study for 20 minutes, relax for 20 minutes. Yes, exactly. Or 40-minute windows or 30. And make sure you're eating and drinking. Yes, water with maybe a pinch of salt. Look into that hydration. And eat the fruit and vegetables, unlike Mr. Dale. We like vegetables. Adult is like all about realizing you get shat on every now and then. Meh, shrug, find you in a stoic and enjoy the ride. Quite. That sounds about right. I'd add to that actually. It's a little. If you've ever played Monopoly, the game, the board game, you pass go, you get 200, and then you go to jail. Hopefully not actual real jail, but you pick up a chance card, and there's doctor fees and all that stuff. So yeah, I wanted to become a bother and a menace, but the pay is horrible, or my mum would be sad. Yeah, and then some real horrible people might get involved as well. What's your favourite tea if you like it? Um, I mean, I'm originally from Germany, as you probably know by now, but I grew up in England, so any kind of black tea with milk, really. Although right now I'm drinking a lemon and ginger. Mm. Why the move to Bucharest? Did I miss what the show was, by the way? Who was saying they had a show on in 2 weeks doing tech for a show? Yes, that's also true. Interpersonal drama doesn't really matter, so don't get caught up in it. Uh, oh, Rika Rants. Wow. Okay. Yeah, that's how it goes sometimes. Mm, uh, sorry, got to back to work tomorrow, so drinking today might not be a good idea. Well, drinking in moderation, is that possible? Have the two beers, not the five. Um, oh, barley tea, is that the one with the pop barley in it? I love that stuff. I want to be a doctor, but pirate sounds also cool. Definitely. Uh, Are you from the Czech? Holka, I guess so. It's a new show in Milan, just tiny. I'm a theatre lighting designer based in London. It's contemporary dance. Okay, nice. All right, cool. Um, Contemporary dance. Um, Barley tea, 10 out of 10. No Nutella for you guys. Uh, what Nutella tea? What is it? What? What? What are you talking about? Also, maybe it's easier not to have an alcoholic beverage. You know, that's why I'm not tonight because I know I've got to be up in the morning. I currently what I do as a hobby. What being a bother? Someone else has to do it. Okay, pirate mechanical engineering occupation. There we go. Get as mechanical as we can, people. Yeah, because there's um, that slop that's going around leaves us no choice. I think we need to get back to the physical and the most mechanical that we can. That's the as an artist, as an actor, as a human being. I feel my responsibility is to get as mechanical, as bothersome actually as well as possible, and keep the slop at bay. Steampunk 2026, absolutely. Um, who here's from North Close to Trotsky. Are you neighbours? Oh my god. Um, well, quite exactly. Start going back to theatre. Yeah, which is why we're going to be doing live shows. Maybe that's connected to what I said earlier about hashtag Misrule. Is that too early to let that drop? I don't know. Do it, Bianco. Learn to draw. Why not? Have a go. Um, Unfortunately, I got put off at school by these twats. I think this is the proper expression, excuse my language. I should have listened to them because I really enjoyed it. But there it is. I found another outlet. Yeah. Do let us know where your Milan contemporary dance show is if you don't mind. I mean, maybe people who are in the area would like to go because I know we've got some other people, maybe from Italy around. Um, mm, I'm a nurse. Would love to be an archer, huntsman, or something like that. Though not talking to people is quite a nice thing. Yeah, yeah. I can imagine. It's quite full on. Fair play to you. I salute nurses and teachers above all, doctors, of course, and yeah. Uh, just give me a second. Sorry, folks, I had to get some more cigarettes and milk. Can you hear me okay? Contracts. Are you asking me about Beggar's Opera? Well, it depends. It depends really, because I've done shows in England where we had 4 to 6 weeks rehearsal, but that was every day, 10 till 6, which is a very nice process if you can get it. Here, unfortunately, because no one's paid for rehearsal. So it was over a period of weeks really. It's not a very text heavy show. It's a one act show. It's 85 minutes. It's a lot of songs, so we focus a lot on songs, but I mean, it's weeks. Yeah, weeks from start to finish. I can't remember how many exactly now. Why did I fall in love with telling stories to people? I think there was a part of me that kind of quite enjoyed the reaction of people applauding at the end of a show. I'll be honest. But what I always get a kick out of is seeing people's reactions to, like, especially like on the tour, for example, a new piece of information, or connecting the dots between something that they hadn't connected before, and seeing that realization. And I think when you tell stories on stage as well, um, it's a similar thing. You can hear the audience hold their breath, or let it go, or react, and it's just facilitating that process of people going on that journey. Somehow there's a connection there between a live audience and a performer, whatever kind of performer it is, with poetry, music, storytelling, theatre. Yeah, that's it really. I think there's just yeah, I think that's it. Just I don't know why I get a kick out of it, but I do. Um, okay, connections and threads that exist between humans. Yeah, yeah. Um, everyone stop holding your breath. Well, they do eventually, because you let them. That's kind of part of it. Is I don't know. There's something very strange about the process of putting a show together, and also theatre is so very strange, because I say you have this rehearsal process, which becomes very personal between you and the other performers, um, and it can be quite intense. So, as I say, we'd have 4 to 6 weeks, and we were devising shows where we were actually writing the script while we were going along as well, and you become this little unit, this little family, and then suddenly you have to put it on in front of people, and you're like, hang on, what? Why? What do you mean we have to show it to other people? What? Why are we doing this? Um, yeah, and then and then your run is over, and you do your however many shows, and suddenly then your family breaks up, and it's a really strange, quite a sad feeling actually sometimes, because you may not see these people again. I mean, obviously we live in a world of social media, and we have telephones and stuff, but sometimes I've worked with performers, and they come from another part of the country, and you don't necessarily just get to hang out. Yes, there is a visceral aspect. Um, yeah. Anyway, yes, listening is definitely a good way of improving English, even for native English speakers. Actually, audiobooks are a great way, because some people are just not readers, and they can't get into it. So audiobooks are great. I love audiobooks. I've been listening to one. I love driving with audiobooks. It's a great way of being able to keep your attention while being entertained somewhat. Nice, House of Clouds. Wow. Okay, that's proper shit on the West End. That's some serious vibes. Um, Are you asking me that, Holker? Sorry, I can't read the blue very well. Holker Zor. Um, I don't think it was as life changing as for Luke, maybe, but it certainly was a huge change. Yeah, I mean, I'm just feeling quite amazed at the response to KCD2 and the opportunities it's given me so far. That I'm here with you guys, for example. And looking forward to doing lots more with Logan and Jim and also Alex, because of course all four of us are also in Stalker 2. And yeah, it's pretty interesting what opportunities or options have opened up, I guess. Yeah. Wow, we got all these talents in here. Violinist as well. House. Yes, I was in Foundation. Yeah, that was a fun character. Alex Mention. All right. So I've got to get my cushion comfy. All right, children, shall we begin? Tonight we will start reading The Cricket on the Hearth, which I believe is a little bit shorter. We're on page 162, page 234. What do we make that? 73. Oh, well, that's still 20 odd good. It's 30 good pages a night, so we better get cracking. The Cricket on the Hearth, a fairy tale of home. To Lord Geoffrey, this little story is inscribed with the affection and attachment of his friend, the author, December 1845. Characters: John Peerybingle, a carrier, a lumbering, slow, honest man. Caleb Plummer, a poor old toy maker in the employ of Tackleton. Edward Plummer, son of the preceding. Tackleton, called Gruff and Tackleton, a stern, ill-natured, sarcastic toy merchant. May Fielding, a friend of Mrs. Peerybingle. Mrs. Fielding, her mother, a little peevish, querulous old lady. Mrs. Mary Peerybingle, Dot, John Peerybingle's wife. Bertha Plummer, a blind girl, daughter of Caleb Plummer. Tilly Slowboy, a great clumsy girl, Mrs. Peerybingle's nursemaid. Is the volume okay? I take it the... yes, thank you. Chirp the first. The kettle began it. Don't tell me what Mrs. Peerybingle said, I know better. Mrs. Peerybingle may leave it on record to the end of time that she couldn't say which of them began it, but I say the kettle did. I ought to know, I hope. The kettle began it, full 5 minutes, by the little waxy-faced Dutch clock in the corner before the cricket uttered a chirp, as if the clock hadn't finished striking, and the convulsive little haymaker at the top of it, jerking away right and left with a scythe, in front of a Moorish palace, hadn't mowed down half an acre of imaginary grass before the cricket joined in at all. Why, I'm not naturally positive, everyone knows that. I wouldn't set my own opinion against the opinion of Mrs. Peerybingle unless I were quite sure on any account whatever. Nothing should induce me. But this is a question of fact, and the fact is that the kettle began it, at least 5 minutes before the cricket gave any sign of being in existence. Contradict me, and I'll say 10. Let me narrate exactly how it happened. I should have proceeded to do so in my very first word, but for this plain consideration. If I am to tell a story, I must begin at the beginning. And how is it possible to begin at the beginning without beginning at the kettle? It appeared as if there were a sort of match, or trial of skill, you must understand, between the kettle and the cricket. And this is what led to it and how it came about. Mrs. Peerybingle, going out into the raw twilight and clicking over the wet stones in a pair of pattens that worked innumerable rough impressions of the first proposition in Euclid all about the yard, Mrs. Peerybingle filled the kettle at the water butt. Presently returning, less the Pattons, and a good deal less as they were tall and Mrs. Peerybingle was but short, she set the kettle on the fire, in doing which she lost her temper, or mislaid it for an instant, for the water being uncomfortably cold, and in that slippy, slushy, sleety sort of state wherein it had fallen, wherein it seems to penetrate through every kind of substance, pattern rings included, had laid hold of Mrs. Peerybingle's toes, and even splashed her legs. And when we rather plume ourselves, with reason too, upon our legs, and keep ourselves particularly neat in point of stockings, we find this, for the moment, hard to bear. Besides, the kettle was aggravating and obstinate. It wouldn't allow itself to be adjusted on the top bar. It wouldn't hear of accommodating itself kindly to the knobs of coal. It would lean forward with a drunken air and dribble, a very idiot of a kettle, on the hearth. It was quarrelsome, and hissed and spluttered morosely at the fire. To sum up all, the lid, resisting Mrs. Peerybingle's fingers, first of all turned topsy-turvy, and then, with an ingenious pertinacity deserving of a better cause, dived sideways in, down to the very bottom of the kettle. And the hull of the Royal George was never made half the monstrous resistance to coming out of the water which the lid of that kettle employed against Mrs. Peerybingle before she got it up again. It looked sullen and pig-headed enough even then, carrying its handle with an air of defiance, and cocking its spout pertly and mockingly at Mrs. Peerybingle, as if it said, "I won't boil, nothing shall induce me." But Mrs. Peerybingle, with restored good humour, dusted her chubby little hands against each other, and sat down before the kettle, laughing. Meantime the jolly blaze uprose and fell, flashing and gleaming on the little haymaker at the top of the Dutch clock, until one might have thought that he stood stock still before the Moorish palace, and was nothing in motion but the flame. He was on the move, however, and had his spasms, 2 to the second, all right and regular. But his sufferings, when the clock was going to strike, were frightful to behold. And when a cuckoo looked out of a trap-door in the palace, and gave note 6 times, it shook him each time like a spectral voice, or like something wiry plucking at his legs. It was not until a violent commotion and a whirring noise among the weights and ropes below him had quite subsided that this terrified haymaker became himself again. Nor was he startled without reason, for these rattling bony skeletons of clocks are very disconcerting in their operation, and I wonder very much how any set of men, but most of all how Dutchmen, can have had a liking to invent them. There is a popular belief that Dutchmen love broad cases and much clothing for their own lower selves, and they might know better than to leave their clocks so very lank and unprotected, surely. Now, it was, you observe, that the kettle began to spend the evening. Now it was that the kettle, growing mellow and musical, began to have irrepressible gurglings in its throat, and to indulge in short vocal snorts, which it checked in the bud, as if it hadn't quite made up its mind yet to be good company. Now it was that after 2 or 3 such vain attempts to stifle its convivial sentiments, it threw off all moroseness, all reserve, and burst into a stream of song so cosy and hilarious as never maudling nightingale yet formed the least idea of. So plain to you. Bless you, you might have understood it like a book. Better than some books you and I could name, perhaps, with its warm breath gushing forth in a light cloud which merrily and gracefully ascended a few feet, then hung about the chimney corner as its own domestic heaven. It trolled its song with that strong energy of cheerfulness that its iron body hummed and stirred upon the fire, and the lid itself, the recently rebellious lid, such is the influence of a bright example, performed a sort of jig, and clattered like a deaf and dumb young cymbal that had never known the use of its twin brother. That this song of the kettles was a song of invitation and welcome to somebody out of doors, to somebody at that moment coming on towards the snug small home and the crisp fire, there is no doubt whatever. Mrs. Peerybingle knew it perfectly as she sat musing before the hearth. "It's a dark night," sang the kettle, "and the rotten leaves are lying by the way, and above all is mist and darkness, and below all is mire and clay. And there's only one relief in all the sad and murky air, and I don't know that it is one, for it's nothing but a glare of deep and angry crimson, where the sun and wind together set a brand upon the clouds for being guilty of such weather, and the widest open country is a long dull streak of black, and there's hoarfrost on the finger-post, and thaw upon the track, and the ice it isn't water, and the water isn't free, and you couldn't say that anything is what it ought to be. But he's coming, coming, coming." And here, if you like, the cricket did chime in, with a chirrup, chirrup, chirrup of such magnitude by way of chorus, with a voice so astoundingly disproportionate to its size, as compared with the kettle, size you couldn't see it, that if it had then and there burst itself like an overcharged gun, if it had fallen a victim on the spot and chirruped its little body into 50 pieces, it would have seemed a natural and inevitable consequence for which it had expressly laboured. The kettle had had the last of its solo performance. It persevered with undiminished ardour, but the cricket took first fiddle and kept it. Good heaven, how it chirped! Its shrill, sharp, piercing voice resounded through the house, and seemed to twinkle in the outer darkness like a star. There was an indescribable little trill and tremble in it at its loudest, which suggested its being carried off its legs, made to leap again by its own intense enthusiasm. Yet they went very well together, the cricket and the kettle. The burden of the song was still the same. The louder, louder, louder still, they sang it in their emulation. The fair listener, for fair she was, and young, though something of what is called the dumpling shape, but I don't myself object to that, lighted a candle, glanced at the haymaker at the top of the clock, who was getting in a pretty average crop of minutes, and looked out of the window, where she saw nothing, owing to the darkness, but her own face imaged in the glass. And my opinion is, and so would yours have been, that she might have looked a long way and seen nothing half so agreeable. When she came back and sat down in her former seat, the cricket and the kettle were still keeping it up, with a perfect fury of competition. The kettle's weak side clearly being that he didn't know when he was beat. There was all the excitement of a race about it. Chirp, 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 cricket a mile ahead. Hum, 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 kettle making a play in the distance like a great top. Chirp, 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 cricket round the corner. Hum, yum, 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 yum. Kettle sticking to him in his own way, no idea of giving in. Chirp, 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 cricket fresher than ever. Hum, yum, 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 kettle slow and steady. Chirp, 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 cricket going on into finish. Hum, yum, 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 kettle not to be finished, until at last they got so jumbled together in the hurry-scurry, helter-skelter of the match, that whether the kettle chirped and the cricket hummed, or the cricket chirped and the kettle hummed, or they both chirped and both hummed, it would have taken a clearer head than yours or mine to have decided with anything like certainty. But of this there is no doubt, that the kettle and the cricket, at one and the same moment, and by some power of amalgamation best known to themselves, sent each his fireside song of comfort streaming into a ray of the candle that shone out through the window, and a long way down the lane, and this light bursting on a certain person who, on the instant, approached towards it through the gloom, expressed the whole thing to him, literally in a twinkling, and cried, "Welcome home, old fellow. Welcome home, my boy." This end attained, the kettle, being dead beat, boiled over, and was taken off the fire. Mrs. Peerybingle then went running to the door, where, what with the wheels of a cart, the tramp of a horse, the voice of a man, the tearing in and out of an excited dog, and the surprising and mysterious appearance of a baby, there was soon the very what's-his-name to pay. Where the baby came from, or how Mrs. Peerybingle got hold of it in the flash of time, I don't know. But a live baby there was in Mrs. Peerybingle's arms, and a pretty tolerable amount of pride she seemed to have in it, when she was drawn gently to the fire by a sturdy figure of a man, much taller and much older than herself, who had to stoop a long way down to kiss her. But she was worth the trouble. 6 foot 6 with a lumbago might have done it. Oh, goodness, John, said Mrs. P., what a state you are within the weather. Excuse me for a minute. Sorry, folks, for the small interludes, being asked some questions. Lumbago, backache. Chair maxing. Pink pillow, well, yeah, because otherwise I sit too far back in this thing. Where were we? Ah, yes, 6 foot 6 with lumbago might have done it. Oh, goodness, John, said Mrs. P., what state you are in with the weather. He was something the worse for it, undeniably. The thick mist hung in clots about his eyelashes like candied thaw. Between the fog and the fire together, there were rainbows in his very whiskers. Oh, why, you see, Dot, John made answer slowly as he unrolled the shawl about his throat and warmed his hands. It ain't exactly the summer weather, so no wonder. I wish you wouldn't call me Dot, John. I don't like it, said Mrs. Peerybingle, pointing in a way that clearly showed she did like it very much. Why, what else are you? Returned John, looking down upon her with a smile, and giving her waist as light a squeeze as his huge hand and arm could give. A Dot and, here he glanced at the baby, a Dot and Carrie, I won't say it, for fear I should spoil it. But I was very near a joke, I don't know as ever I was nearer. He was often near to something or other very clever by his own account, this lumbering, slow, honest John, this John so heavy but so light of spirit, so rough about the surface but so gentle at the core, so dull without, so quick within, so stolid but so good. O Mother Nature, give thy children the true poetry of heart that hid itself in this poor carrier's breast. He was but a carrier, by the way, and we can bear to have them walking prose and leading lives of prose, and bear to bless thee for other company. It was pleasant to see Dot with her little figure and her baby in her arms, a very doll of a baby, glancing with a coquettish thoughtfulness at the fire, and inclining her delicate little head just enough on one side to let it rest in an odd, half-natural, half-affected, wholly nestling and agreeable manner on the great rugged figure of the carrier. It was pleasant to see him with his tender awkwardness endeavouring to adapt his rude support to her slight need, and make his burly middle age a leaning staff for not inappropriate to her blooming youth. It was pleasant to observe how Tilly Slowboy, waiting in the background for the baby, took special cognizance, though in her earliest teens, of this grouping, and stood with her mouth and eyes wide open, and her head thrust forward, taking it in as if it were air. Nor was it less agreeable to observe how John the carrier, referenced being by being Dot to the aforesaid baby, checked his hand when on the point of touching the infant, as if he thought he might crack it, and bending down surveyed it from a safe distance with a kind of puzzled pride, such as an amiable mastiff might be supposed to show if he found himself one day the father of a young canary. "Ain't he beautiful, John? Don't you look precious in his sleep?" "Very precious," said John. "Very much so." "He generally is asleep, ain't he?" "Lord, John, good gracious, no." "Oh," said John, pondering. "I thought his eyes was generally shut, halloa." "Goodness, John, how you startle one." "It ain't right for him to turn 'em up in that way," said the astonished Carrie, "is it? See how he's winking with both of 'em at once, and look at his mouth. Why is he gasping like a gold and silver fish?" "You don't deserve to be a father, you don't," said Dot, with all the dignity of an experienced matron. "But how should you know what little complaints children are troubled with, John? You wouldn't so much as know their names, you stupid fellow." And when she had turned the baby over on her left arm and had slapped its back as a restorative, she pinched her husband's ear, laughing. "No," said John, pulling off his outer coat. "It's very true, Dot. I don't know much about it. I only know that I've been fighting pretty stiffly with the wind tonight. It's been blowing northeast straight into the cart the whole way home." "Poor old man, so it has," cried Mrs. Peerybingle, instantly becoming very active. "Here, take the precious darling Tilly, which I make myself some use of. Bless it, I could smother it with kissing it, I could. Hi then, good dog. Hey, Boxer boy. Only let me make the tea first, John, and then I'll help you with the parcels like a busy bee. How doth the little and all the rest of it, you know, John. Did you ever learn how doth the little when you went to school, John?" "Not to quite know it," John returned. "I was very near it once, but I should only have spoiled it, I dare say." laughed Dot. She had the blithest little laugh you ever heard. "What a dear old darling of a dunce you are, John, to be sure." Not at all disputing this position, John went out to see that the boy with the lantern, which had been dancing to and fro before on the door and window like a will-o'-the-wisp, took due care of the horse. It was fatter than you would quite believe if I gave you his measure, and so old that his birthday was lost in the mists of antiquity. Boxer, feeling that his attentions were due to the family in general, and must be impartially distributed, dashed in and out with bewildering inconstancy, now describing a circle of short barks around the horse, where he was being rubbed down at the stable door, now feigning to make savage rushes at his mistress and facetiously bringing himself to a sudden stop, now eliciting a shriek from Tilly Slowboy in the low nursing chair near the fire by the unexpected application of his moist nose to her countenance, now exhibiting an unobtrusive interest in the baby, now going round and round upon the hearth and lying down as if he had established himself for the night, now getting up again and taking nothing of a fag end of a tail of his out into the weather, as if he had just remembered an appointment and was off at a round trot to keep it. "There's the teapot, ready on the hob," said Dot, as briskly as a busy child at play at keeping house. "And there's an old knuckle of ham, and there's the butter, and there's the crusty loaf, and all. And here's the clothes basket for the small parcels, John, if you've got any there. Where are you, John? Don't let the dear child fall under the grate, Tilly, whatever you do." It may be noted of Miss Slowboy, in spite of her rejecting the caution with some vivacity, that she had a rare and surprising talent for keeping this baby into difficulties, and had several times imperilled its short life in a quiet way peculiarly her own. She was of a spare and straight shape, this young lady, insomuch that her garments appeared to be in constant danger of sliding off those sharp pegs, her shoulders, on which they were loosely hung. Her costume was remarkable for the partial development, on all possible occasions, of some flannel vestment of a singular structure, also for affording glimpses in the region of the back of a corset or a pair of stays in a colour of dead green. Being always in a state of gaping admiration at everything, and absorbed besides in the perpetual contemplation of her mistress's perfections and the baby's, Miss Slowboy and her little errors of judgment may be said to have done equal honour to her head and to her heart, and though these did less honour to the baby's head, in which they were occasional means of bringing into contact with deal doors, dressers, stair rails, bedposts, and other foreign substances, still they were the honest results of Tilly Slowboy's constant astonishment at finding herself so kindly treated and installed in such a comfortable home. For the maternal and paternal Slowboy were alike unknown to fame, and Tilly had been bred by public charity, a foundling, which word, though only differing from fondling by one fowl's length, is different in meaning and expresses quite another thing. To have seen little Mrs. Peerybingle come back with her husband, tugging at the clothes basket and making the most strenuous exertions to do nothing at all, for he carried it, would have amused you almost as much as it had amused him. It may have entertained the cricket too, for anything I know, but certainly it now began to chirp again vehemently. "Hey day," said John in his slow way. "It's merrier than ever tonight, I think." "And it's sure to bring us good fortune, John. It always has done so. To have a cricket on the hearth is the luckiest thing in all the world." John looked at her as if he had very nearly got the thought into his head that she was his cricket in chief, and he quite agreed with her. But it was probably one of his narrow escapes, for he said nothing. "The first time I heard its cheerful little note, John, was on that night when you brought me home. When you brought me to my new home here, its little mistress, nearly a year ago. You recollect, John?" Oh, yes. John remembered, I should think so. "Its chirp was such a welcome to me. It seemed so full of promise and encouragement. It seemed to say, you'd be kind and gentle with me, and would not expect, I'd fear of that, John, then, to find an old head on the shoulders of your foolish little wife." John thoughtfully patted one of the shoulders, and then the head, as though he would have said no. He had had no such expectation. He had been quite content to take them as they were, and really he had reason. They were very comely. It spoke the truth, John, when it seemed to say so, for you have ever been, I am sure, the best, most considerate, the most affectionate of husbands to me. This has been a happy home, John, and I love the cricket for its sake." "Why, so do I, then," said the carrier. "So do I, Dot. I love it for the many times I have heard it, and the many thoughts its harmless music has given me. Sometimes in the twilight, when I have a little solitary and downhearted, John, before the baby was here to keep me company and make the house gay, when I have thought how lonely you would be if I should die, and how lonely I should be if I could know that you had lost me, dear, its chirp, chirp, chirp upon the hearth has seemed to tell me of another little voice, so sweet, so very dear to me, before whose coming sound my trouble vanished like a dream. And when I used to fear, I did fear once, John, I was very young, you know, that ours might prove to be an ill-assorted marriage, I being such a child and you more like my guardian than my husband, that you might not, however hard you tried, be able to learn to love me as you had hoped and prayed you might. Its chirp, chirp, chirp has cheered me up again and filled me with new trust and confidence. I was thinking of these things tonight, dear, when I sat expecting you, and I love the cricket for their sake." "And so do I," repeated John. "But Dot, I hope and pray that I might learn to love you." "How talk? I had learnt that long before I brought you here to the cricket's little mistress, Dot. To be the cricket's little mistress, Dot." She laid her hand an instant on his arm and looked up at him with an agitated face, as if she would have told him something. Next moment she was down upon her knees before the basket, speaking in a sprightly voice and busy with the parcels. "There are not many of them tonight, John, but I saw some goods behind the cart just now, and though they give more trouble perhaps, still they pay as well, so we have no reason to grumble, have we? Besides, you've been delivering, I dare say, as you came along?" "Oh, yes," John said, "a good many." "Why, what's this round box? Heart alive, John, it's a wedding cake." "Leave a woman alone to find that out," said John admiringly. "Nah, a man would never have thought of it. Whereas it's my belief that if you was to pack a wedding cake up in a tea chest or turn up bedstead or a pickled salmon keg or any other unlikely thing, a woman would be sure to find it directly. Yes, I called for it at the pastry cook's. And it weighs, I don't know what, a whole 100 weights? Cried Dot, making a great demonstration of trying to lift it. Whose is it, John? Where is it going? Read the writing on the other side, said John. Why, John, my goodness, John. Ah, who'd have thought it? John returned. You never mean to say, pursued Dot, sitting on the floor and shaking her head at him, that it's Gruff and Tackleton the toy maker? John nodded. Mrs. Peerybingle nodded also, 50 times at least. Not in assent, in dumb and pitying amazement, screwing up her lips the while with all their little force. They were never made for screwing up, I'm clear of that, and looking the good carrier through and through in her abstraction. Miss Slowboy, in the meantime, who had a mechanical power of reproducing scraps of current conversation for the delectation of the baby, with all the sense struck out of them and all the nouns changed into the plural number, and inquired aloud of that young creature, was it Gruff's and Tackletons the toys makers then, and would it call at the pastry cook's for wedding cakes, and did its mothers know the boxes, and when its fathers brought them homes, and so on? And that is really to come about, said Dot. Why, she and I were girls at school together, John. He might have been thinking of her, or nearly thinking of her, perhaps, as she was in that same school time. He looked upon her with a thoughtful pleasure, but made no answer. And he's as old, as unlike her. Wait, how many years older than you is Gruff and Tackleton, John? How many more cups of tea shall I drink tonight at one sitting than Gruff and Tackleton's ever took in four, I wonder? Replied John good-humouredly, as he drew a chair to the round table and began at the cold ham. As to eating, I eat but little, but that little I enjoy, Dot. Even this, his usual sentiment at meal-times, one of his innocent delusions, for his appetite was always obstinate and flatly contradicted him, awoke no smile in the face of his little wife, who stood among the parcels, pushing the cake-box slowly from her with her foot, and never once looked, though her eyes were cast down too, upon the dainty shoe she generally was so mindful of. Absorbed in thought, she stood there, heedless alike of the tea and John, although he called to her, and rapped the table with his knife to startle her, until he rose and touched her on the arm, when she looked at him for a moment, and hurried to her place behind the tea-board, laughing at her negligence. But not as she had laughed before. The manner and the music had quite changed. The cricket, too, had stopped. Somehow the room was not so cheerful as it had been. Nothing like it. So, these are all the parcels, are they, John? She said, breaking a long silence, which the honest carrier had devoted to the practical illustration of one part of his favourite sentiment, certainly enjoying what he ate, if it couldn't be admitted that he ate but little. So, these are all the parcels, are they, John? That's all, said John. Why, no, laying down his knife and fork and taking a long breath, I declare I've clean forgotten the old gentleman. The old gentleman? In the cart, said John. He was asleep among the straw the last time I saw him. I very nearly remembered him twice since I came in, but he went out of my head again. Hello, you're hip there, rise up, that's my hearty. John said these latter words outside the door, whither he had hurried with the candle in his hand. Miss Slowboy, conscious of some mysterious reference to the old gentleman, and connecting in her mysterious imagination certain associations of a religious nature with the phrase, was so disturbed that, hastily rising from the low chair by the fire to seek protection near the skirts of her mistress, and coming into contact as she crossed the doorway with an ancient stranger, she instinctively made a charge or butt at him with the only offensive instrument within her reach. The instrument happening to be the baby, great commotion and alarm ensued, with the sagacity of Boxer rather tended to increase, for that good dog, more thoughtful than its master, had, it seemed, been watching the old gentleman in his sleep lest he should walk off with a few young poplar trees that were tied up behind the cart. And he still attended on him very closely, worrying his gaiters, in fact, and making dead sets at the buttons. "You're such an undeniably good sleeper, sir," said John, when the tranquillity was restored. In the meantime, the old gentleman had stood bareheaded and motionless in the centre of the room. "That I have half a mind to ask you where the other 6 are, only that I would joke, and I know I should spoil it." "Very near, though," murmured the carrier with a chuckle. "Very near." The stranger, who had long white hair, good features, singularly bold and well defined for an old man, and dark, bright, penetrating eyes, looked round with a smile, and saluted the carrier's wife by gravely inclining his head. His garb was very quaint and odd, a long, long way behind the time. Its hue was brown all over. In his hand he held a great brown club or walking stick, and striking this upon the floor, it fell asunder and became a chair, on which he sat down quite composedly. "There," said the carrier, turning to his wife, "that's the way I found him, sitting upon the roadside, upright as a milestone and almost as deaf." "Sitting in the open air, John?" "In the open air," replied the carrier, "just at dusk. 'Carriage paid,' he said, and gave me 18 pence. Then he got in, and there he is." "He's going, John, I think." "Not at all. He was only going to speak." "If you please, I was to be left till called for," said the stranger mildly. "Don't mind me." With that he took a pair of spectacles from one of his large pockets and a book from another, and leisurely began to read, making no more of Boxer than if he had been a house lamb. The carrier and his wife exchanged a look of perplexity. The stranger raised his head, and glancing from latter to the former, said, "Your daughter, my good friend?" "Wife," returned John. "Niece," said the stranger. "Wife," roared John. "Indeed," observed the stranger. "Surely. Very young." He quietly turned over and resumed his reading. But before he could have read 2 lines, he again interrupted himself to say, "Baby yours?" John gave him a gigantic nod, equivalent to an answer in the affirmative, delivered through a speaking trumpet. "Girl?" "Boy," roared John. "Also very young, eh?" Mrs. Peerybingle instantly struck in. 2 months and 3 days, vaccinated just 6 weeks ago, took very finely, considered by the doctor a very remarkably beautiful child, equal to the general run of children at 5 months old. Takes notice in a way, quite wonderful. May seem impossible to you, but feels his legs already." Here the breathless little mother, who had been shrieking these short sentences into the old man's ear until her pretty face was crimsoned, held up the baby before him as a stubborn and triumphant fact, while Tilly Slowboy, with a melodious cry of "Catcher, catcher," which sounded like some unknown words, adopted to a popular sneeze, performed some cow-like gambols round that all-unconscious innocent. "Hark, he's called for, sure enough," said John. "There's somebody at the door. Open it, Tilly." Before she could reach it, however, it was opened from without, being a primitive sort of door with a latch that anyone could lift it if he chose. And a good many people did choose, for all kinds of neighbours liked to have a cheerful word or two with the carrier, though he was no great talker himself. Being opened, it gave admission to a little, meagre, thoughtful, dingy-faced man, who seemed to have made himself a greatcoat from the sackcloth covering of some old box. For then he turned to shut the door, and to keep the weather out, he disclosed upon the back of the garment the inscription G&T in large black capitals, also the word glass in bold characters. "Good evening, John," said the little man. "Good evening, Mum. Good evening, Tilly. Good evening, Unbeknown. How's baby, Mum? Box as well, I hope?" "All thriving, Caleb," replied Dot. "I'm sure you need only look at the dear child for one to know that." "I'm sure I need only look at you for another," said Caleb. He didn't look at her, though. He had a wondering and thoughtful eye which seemed to be always projecting itself into some other time and place, no matter what he said. a description which will equally apply to his voice. Or at John, for another, said Caleb. Or at Tilly, as far as that goes, or certainly at Boxer. Busy just now, Caleb? Asked the carrier. Why, pretty well, John, he returned, with the distraught air of a man who was casting about for the philosopher's stone at least. Pretty much so. There's rather a run on Noah's Arks at present. I could have wished to improve upon the family, but I don't see how it's to be done at the price. It would be satisfactory to one's mind to make it clearer which Shems and Hams and which was wives. Flies aren't on that scale neither, as compared with the elephants, you know. Ah, well. Have you got anything in the parcel line for me, John? The carrier put his hand into the pocket of the coat he had taken off and brought out, carefully preserved in moss and paper, a tiny flower pot. There it is, he said, adjusting it with great care. Not so much as a leaf damaged, full of buds. Caleb's dull eye brightened as he took it and thanked him. Dear Caleb, said the carrier, very dear at this season. Never mind that. It would be cheap to me, whatever it cost, returned the little man. Anything else? A small box, replied the carrier. Here you are. For Caleb Plummer, said the little man, spelling out the direction, with cash. With cash, John? I don't think it's for me. With care, returned the carrier, looking over his shoulder. Where do you make out cash? Oh, to be sure, said Caleb. It's all right, with care. Yes, that's mine. It might have been with cash indeed if my dear boy in the golden South America had lived, John. You loved him like a son, didn't you? You didn't say you did, I know, of course. Caleb Plummer with care. Yes, it's all right. It's a box of doll's eyes for my daughter's work. I wish it was her own sight in a box, John. I wish it was or could be, cried the carrier. Thank ye, said the little man. You speak very hearty. To think she'd never seen the dolls, and them a staring at her so bold all day long. That's where it cuts. What's the damage, John? I'll damage you, said John, if you inquire. Dot, very near? Well, it's as like to say so, observed the little man. It's very kind of your way. Let me see. I think that's all. I think not, said the carrier. Try again. Something for our governor, eh? Said Caleb, after pondering a little while. To be sure, that's what I came for. But my head's so on running the marks and things. Hasn't been here, has he? Not he, returned the carrier. He's too busy courting. He's coming round, though, said Caleb, for he told me to keep on the near side of the road going home, and it was 10 to 1 he'd take me up. I'd better go, by the by. You couldn't have the goodness to let me pinch Boxer's tail, Mum, for half a moment, could you? Why, Caleb, what a question. Oh, never mind, Mum, said the little man. You mightn't like it, perhaps. There's a small order just came in for barking dogs, that I should wish to go to as close to as nature as I could for 6pence, that's all. Never mind, Mum. It happened opportunely that Boxer, without receiving the proposed stimulus, began to bark with great zeal. But, as this implied the approach of some new visitor, Caleb, postponing his study from the life to a more convenient season, shouldered the round box and took a hurried leave. He might have spared himself the trouble, for he met the visitor upon the threshold. Oh, you are here, are you? Wait a bit, I'll take you home. John Peerybingle, my service to you, more of my service to your pretty wife. Handsomer every day. Better too, if possible. And younger, mused the speaker in a low voice. That's the devil of it. I should be astonished at your paying compliments, Mr. Tackleton, said Dot, with not with the best grace in the world, but for your condition. You know all about it, then? I've got myself to believe it somehow, said Dot. After a hard struggle, I suppose. Very. Tackleton the toy merchant, pretty generally known as Gruff and Tackleton, for that was the firm, though Gruff had been bought out long ago, only leaving his name, and as some said his nature, according to its dictionary meaning in the business, Tackleton the toy merchant was a man whose vocation had been quite misunderstood by his parents and guardians. If they had made him a money-lender, or a sharp attorney, or a sheriff's office, or a broker, he might have sown his own disconsolate oaths in his youth, and after having had the full run of himself in an ill-natured transactions, might have turned out amiable at least for the sake of a little freshness and novelty. But, cramped and chafing in the peaceable pursuit of toy-making, he was a domestic ogre, who had been living on children all his life, and was their implacable enemy. He despised all toys, wouldn't have bought one for the world, delighted in his malice to insinuate grim expressions into the faces of brown paper farmers who drove pigs to market, bellmen who advertised lost lawyers' consciences, movable old ladies who darned socks or carved pies, and other like samples of his stock in trade. In appalling masks, hideous, hairy, red-eyed jack-in-boxes, vampire kites, demoniacal tumblers who wouldn't lie down and were perpetually flying forward to stare infants out of countenance, his soul perfectly revelled. They were his only relief and safety valve. He was great in such inventions. Anything suggestive of a pony nightmare was delicious to him. He'd even lost money, and he took to that toy very kindly by getting up goblin slides for magic lanterns, whereon the powers of darkness were depicted as a sort of supernatural shellfish with human faces. In intensifying the portraiture of giants, he had sunk quite a little capital, and though painter himself, he could indicate for the instruction of his artists with a piece of chalk a certain furtive leer for the countenances of his monsters, which was safe to destroy the peace of mind of any young gentleman between the ages of 6 and 11 for the whole Christmas or midsummer vacation. What he was in toys, he was, as most men are, in other things. You may easily suppose, therefore, that within the great green cape which reached down to the calves of his legs, there was buttoned up to the chin an uncommonly pleasant fellow, and that he was about as choice a spirit and as agreeable companion as ever stood in a pair of bull-headed looking boots with mahogany-coloured tops. Still, Tackleton the toy merchant was going to be married. In spite of all this, he was going to be married, and to a young wife too, a beautiful young wife. He didn't look much like a bridegroom as he stood in the carrier's kitchen with a twist in his dry face and screw in his body and his hat jerked over the bridge of his nose and his hands tucked down into the bottoms of his pockets and his whole sarcastic, ill-conditioned self peering out of one little corner of one little eye, like the concentrated essence of any number of ravens. But a bridegroom he designed to be. In 3 days' time, next Thursday, the last day of the first month in the year. That's my wedding day. Did I mention that he was always one eye open and one eye nearly shut, and that the one eye nearly shut was always the expressive one? I don't think I did. That's my wedding day, said Tackleton, rattling his money. Why, that's our wedding day too, exclaimed the carrier. Laughed Tackleton. Odd. You're just such another couple, just. The indignation of Dot at this presumptuous assertion is not to be described. What next? His imagination would compass the possibility of such another baby, perhaps. The man was mad. I say, a word with you, murmured Tackleton, nudging the carrier with his elbow, taking him a little apart. You'll come to the wedding, eh? We're in the same boat, you know. How in the same boat? Inquired the carrier. Oh, a little disparity, you know, said Tackleton with another nudge. Come and spend an evening with us beforehand. Why? Demanded John, astonished at this pressing hospitality. Why? Returned the other. That's a new way of receiving an invitation. Why, for pleasure, sociability, you know, and all that. I thought you were never sociable, said John in his plain way. It's of no use to be anything but free with you, I see, said Tackleton. Why, then the truth is you have what tea-drinking people call a sort of comfortable appearance together, you and your wife. We know better, you know, but... No, we don't know better, interposed John. What are you talking about? Well, we don't know better, then, said Tackleton. We'll agree that we don't. As you like, what does it matter? I was going to say, as you have that sort of appearance, your company will produce a favourable effect on Mrs. Tackleton. That will be all. And though I don't think your good lady is very friendly to me in this matter, still she can't help herself from falling into my views, for there's a compactness and cosiness of appearance about her that always tells, even in an indifferent case. You'll say you'll come? We have arranged to keep our wedding day as far as that goes at home, said John. We've made the promise to ourselves these 6 months. We think, you see, that home... Bah! What's home? Cried Tackleton. 4 walls and a ceiling. Why don't you kill that cricket? I would. I always do. I hate their noise. There are 4 walls and a ceiling at my house. Come, come. You kill your crickets, eh? Said John. Scrunch 'em, sir, returned the other, letting his heel heavily on the floor. You say you'll come? It's as much your interest as mine, you know, that the women should persuade each other that they're quiet and contented and couldn't be better off. I know their way. Whatever one woman says, another is determined to clinch always. There's that spirit of emulation among them, sir, that if your wife says to my wife, I'm the happiest woman in the world, and mine's the best husband in the world, and I dote on him, my wife will say the same to yours, or more, and half believe it. Do you mean to say that she don't, then? Asked the carrier. Don't? Cried Tackleton with a short, sharp laugh. Don't what? The carrier had some faint idea of adding, dote upon you, but happening to meet the half-closed eye as it twinkled upon him over the turned-up collar of the cape, which was within an ace of poking it out, he felt it such unlikely part and parcel of anything to be doted on that he substituted that she don't believe it. Ah, you dog, you're joking, said Tackleton. But the carrier, though slow to understand the full drift of his meaning, eyed him in such a serious manner that he was obliged to be a little bit more explanatory. I have the humour, said Tackleton, holding up the fingers on his left hand and tapping the forefinger to imply. There I am, Tackleton to wit. I have the humour, sir, to marry a young wife and a pretty wife. Here he rapped his little finger to express the bride, not sparingly but sharply, with a sense of power. I'm able to gratify that humour, I do. It's my whim. But now, look here. He pointed to where Dot was sitting thoughtfully before the fire, leaning her dimpled chin upon her hand and watching the bright blaze. The carrier looked at her, and then at him, and then at her, and then at him again. She honours and obeys, no doubt, you know, said Tackleton, and that, as I am not a man of sentiment, is quite enough for me. But do you think there's anything more in it? I think, observed the carrier, that I should chuck any man out the window who said there wasn't. Exactly so, returned the other with unusual alacrity of assent. To be sure, doubtless you would. Of course, I'm certain of it. Good night. Pleasant dreams. The carrier was puzzled and made uncomfortable and uncertain in spite of himself. He couldn't help but showing it in his manner. Good night, my dear friend, said Tackleton compassionately. I'm off. We're exactly alike in reality, see. You won't give us tomorrow evening? Next day you go out visiting, I know. I'll meet you there and bring my wife, that is to be. It'll do her good. You're agreeable? Thank ye. What's that? It was a loud cry from the carrier's wife, a loud, sharp, sudden cry that made the room ring like a glass vessel. She had risen from her seat and stood like one transfixed by terror and surprise. The stranger had advanced towards the fire to warm himself, and stood within a short stride of her chair, but quite still. Dot, cried the carrier. Mary, darling, what's the matter? They were all about her in a moment. Caleb, who had been dozing on the cake box in the first imperfect recovery of his suspended presence of mind, seized Mrs. Slowboy by the hair of her head, but immediately apologized. Mary, exclaimed the carrier, supporting her in his arms. Are you ill? What is it? Tell me, dear. She only answered by beating her hands together and falling into a wild fit of laughter. Then, sinking from his grasp upon the ground, she covered her face with her apron and wept bitterly. And then she laughed again, and she cried again. And then she said how cold it was, and suffered him to lead her to the fire, where she sat down as before, the old man standing as before, quite still, I'm better, John, she said. I'm quite well now. John? But John was on the other side of her. Why turn her face towards the strange old gentleman as if addressing him? Was her brain wandering? Only fancy, John dear, a kind of shock, or something suddenly coming before my eyes. I don't know what it was. It's quite gone. It's quite gone. I'm glad it's gone, muttered Tackleton, turning expressive eye all round the room. I wonder where it's gone and what it was. Caleb, come here. Who's that with the grey hair? I don't know, sir, returned Caleb in a whisper. Never seen him before in all my life. A beautiful figure for a nutcracker, quite a new model, with a screw-jawed top opening into his waistcoat. He'd be lovely. Not ugly enough, said Tackleton. Or for a firebox either, observed Caleb in deep contemplation. What a model! Unscrew his head to put the matches in, turn up heels upwards for the light, and what a light box for a gentleman's mantelshelf, just as he stands. Not half ugly enough, said Tackleton. Nothing him in at all. Come, bring that box, all right? All right now, I hope? Oh, quite gone, said the little woman, waving him hurriedly away. Good night. Good night, said Tackleton. Good night, John Peerybingle. Take care how you carry that box, Caleb. Let it fall and I'll murder you. Dark as pitch and weather worse than ever, eh? Good night. So, with another sharp look around the room, he went out at the door, followed by Caleb with the wedding cake on his head. The carrier had been so much astounded by his little wife, and so busily engaged in soothing and tending there, that he had scarcely been conscious of the stranger's presence until now, when he again stood there, their only guest. He don't belong to them, you see, said John. I must give him a hint to go. I beg your pardon, friend, said the old gentleman, advancing at him. The most so I fear your wife has not been well, be the attendant whom my infirmity. He touched his ears and shook his head. Renders almost indispensable. Not having arrived, I fear there must be some mistake. The bad night which made the shelter of your comfortable cart, may I never have worse, so acceptable, is still as bad as ever. Would you, in your kindness, suffer me to rent a bed here? Yes, cried Dot. Yes, certainly. Oh, said the carrier, surprised by the rapidity of this consent. Well, I don't object, but I'm still not quite sure that... Hush, she interrupted. Dear John? Why, he's stone deaf, urged John. I know he is. Yes, sir, certainly. Yes, sir. I'll make him up a bed directly, John. As she hurried to do it, the flutter of her spirits and the agitation of her manner were so strange that the carrier stood looking after her quite confounded. Did its mothers make it up its beds then? Cried Miss Slowboy to the baby. And did its hair grow brown and curly when its caps was lifted off and frightened it, a precious pets, a sitting by the fires? With that unaccountable attraction of the mind to trifles which is often incidental to a state of doubt and confusion, the carrier, as he walked slowly to and fro, found himself mentally repeating even these absurd words many times. So many times that he got them by heart, and was still conning them over and over like a lesson, when Tilly, after administering as much friction to the little bald head with her hand as she thought wholesome, according to the practice of nurses, once more tied the baby's cap on. And it frightens it, a precious sets a-sitting by the fires. What frightened Dot, I wonder? Mused the carrier, pacing to and fro. He scouted from his heart the insinuations of the toy merchant, and yet they filled him with a vague, indefinite uneasiness. For Tackleton was quick and sly, and he had that painful sense himself of being a man of slow perception, that a broken hint was always worrying to him. He certainly had no intention in his mind of linking anything that Tackleton had said with the unusual conduct of his wife, but the two subjects of reflection came into his mind together, and he could not keep them asunder. The bed was soon made ready, and the visitor, declining all refreshment but a cup of tea, retired. Then Dot, quite well again, she said, quite well again, arranged the great chair in the chimney corner for her husband. filled his pipe and gave it him, and took her usual little stool beside him on the hearth. She always would sit on the little stool. I think she must have had a kind of notion that it was a coaxing, wheedling little stool. She was, out and out, the very best filler of a pipe, I should say, in the 4 quarters of the globe. To see her put that chubby little finger in the bowl and then blow down the pipe to clear the tube, and when she had done so, affect to think that there was really something in the tube and blow 12 times, and hold it to her high like a telescope with a most provoking twist in her capital little face as she looked down it, was quite a brilliant thing. As to the tobacco, she was a perfect mistress of the subject, and her lighting of the pipe with a whisk of paper when the carrier had it in his mouth, going so very near his nose and yet not scorching it, was art, high art. And the cricket in the kettle, turning up again, acknowledged it. The bright fire, blazing up again, acknowledged it. The little mower on the clock in his unheeded work acknowledged it. The carrier, in his smoothing forehead and expanding face, acknowledged it the readiest of all. And as he soberly and thoughtfully puffed at his old pipe, and as the Dutch clock ticked, as the red fire gleamed, as the cricket chirped, and the genius of his hearth and home, for such the cricket was, came out in fairy shape into the room, and summoned many forms of home about him, dots of all ages and sizes filled the chamber, dots who were merry children, running on before him, gathering the flowers in the field, coy dots, half shrinking from, half yielding to, the pleading of his own rough image, newly married dots alighting at the door and taking wondering possession of the household keys, motherly little dots attended by fictitious slow boys bearing babies to be christened, matronly dots still young and blooming watching dots of daughters as they danced at rustic balls, fat dots endirtled and beset by troops of rosy grandchildren, withered dots who leaned on sticks and totters as they crept along. Old carriers, too, appeared with blind old boxes lying at their feet, and newer carts with younger drivers, peerybingle brothers on the tilt, and sick old carriers, tended by the gentlest hands, and graves of dead and gone carriers, green in the churchyard. And as the cricket showed him all these things, he saw them plainly, though his eyes were fixed upon the fire. The carrier's heart grew light and happy, and he thanked his household gods with all his might and care, no more for Gruff and Tackleton than you do. But what was that young figure of a man which the same fairy cricket set so near her stool, and which remained there singly and alone? Why did it linger still, so near her, with its arm upon the chimney-piece, ever repeating, "Married, and not to me"? Oh, Dot, oh, failing Dot, there is no place for it in all your husband's visions. Why has its shadow fallen on his hearth? That's it, man. Fingering a bowl. How we doing, peeps? What we got here? 17. Just doing the math here. 17, 34, 47, 53. Okay. Very cozy indeed. Chat is locked in. Have some who's practice? Who's what? What? How about top with a small sprinkle of sea salt? Hang on, sweet. Oh, come on. Are you talking food up there? Dad got excited by the food talk. Yup. Hang on. What would be good, Imogen? What's good? The chat? The food. Who? What cookies? Are you talking cookies? Mentioned Dadzig. Looked. What's my favorite biscuits? Oh, I don't know. I hate these questions. Um, mm, biscuit. Um, I like a little cookie. Yes, cookies. No, biscuits. I like biscuits. I mean, cook in the UK. What we could call cookies, American, like choc chip cookies, for example. Um, I really don't know. Something with coconuts, maybe. Coconut. I like a lot of different. I just like food, don't I? Yeah. Shortbread. Shortbread. Scottish shortbread. Sick. Um, a chat behaving. Well, that's great. I'm happy to hear that. Um, some. Just checking my phone. Got a message hoving in. Very rude of me. Um, and that's all very good. Roasted chicken with little potatoes. Yep, sounds good to me. Anything with roasted potatoes, isn't it? Singoala. Oh my word, what is that? Where's that called? Where is Singoala from? Singoala. What do you mean I'm not looking? Sweden. Oh, I see. It's a Swedish cookie with a heathen Earl Grey with milk. What's heathen about that? What's heathen about Earl Grey with milk? Yeah, bubbly now. The key's still in the hand, so careful. No, we've made sure that all flammables are out there, but we will leave you some cookie and warm tea. Um, Most Brits put milk in tea. Yes, not all Brits. Um, Millionaires shortbread. Oh, I don't know about that. I think it's too sweet for me. Milky, milky. And when am I supposed to put it? Oh, that's that's a controversial topic, that isn't it? Some people say you should put the milk in before, and others say you should put it on after. There's a very good reason. Uh, who told you you were terrible for putting milk in Earl Grey? Probably not British people, was it? Um, the reason you put milk in first is if you had fine china and you had hot tea, because it's made with boiling water, you could crack the china. And so you put milk in the cup first before you add the tea so as not to crack the china. Other than that, you can do what you like. Personally, I think if you put the milk in first with the hot liquid on, it draws out the sweetness of the milk more rather than adding it after. But I don't mind either way. Milk zig, yes. Keep the milk far away from your tea. That's fine. You can have hot black tea. Uh, every time I try putting the water, it becomes this weird, grumbly milk, weird thingy. What kind of milk are you using? Cow's milk? You shouldn't do that. If you're using non-dairy product, then it sometimes does that because it's not. Um, yeah, well, the Devonians have very strong feelings about the scone. Um, but yes, hang on. Who your British Australian brother-in-law did what? Tell you that you're bad for putting milk in? Um, Cows. Oh, I don't know why I would do that. What does it do, Jar Jar D? I don't understand. Um, this is true that if you put, well, that's the thing. You see, if you're making a pot of tea, Esther, and then you're pouring it into your cup. That's different. Whereas if the milk's in there first, you are of course cooling the water down as you're putting it over the tea bag. So that is true. Oh, scheiße. Sorry, kids. Oh God. Oh, he's wrecked it now. Wrecked the mic. Watch me wreck the mic. Oh, sorry, guys. What's going on here? Wrecked it. Broke it. Oh, dude. I apologise with the greatest of vigour. There. We okay? What is sun tea? What is sun tea? Oh, maybe it's the type of milk you're using then. Yeah, the rubber on this thing is worn out, and it does not like it. Sun tea is an opportunity to brew the tea in the sun and probably bacteria. Oh dear. Oh, Eilish, that sounds horrible. Uh, oh, is that it? Okay, I guess. Yeah, I hate when the rubber gets worn out too. Um, yeah, soon. All right, all right. I've got to work it out. I realise I have an issue because I think I can only use one camera at once on Twitch, right? Can does anybody here know this? If this is possible? Because ideally I would use two cameras when I'm cooking. Um, yeah, so it's just cold. It's just cold brew tea. Yeah, I mean that's all fashionable now, isn't it? You can use more. Really? Oh, nothing but lurking. You're being very helpful here. Okay, I need to look into it then. Mm, as many camera sources as you want. Shut up. Really, I was worried about that. You see, I haven't done any research yet. Okay, that's fine. In that case, bring it on. Put lemons in it too. Cold batch tea. All right, gang. I think we need to get on with the reading. We'll finish up on Tuesday, but I need to crack on. So we will not get. I don't know how many chirps there are. This is chirp the second. I think there's only 3 chirps. One hopes Dickens will give us a happy ending. Kvashaki, what is that? Do I like bourguignon? You mean like boeuf bourguignon? It's what I actually cooked for Christmas. Yes, I do like boeuf bourguignon. I can't pronounce it though. I actually cooked it for a French cook once. She was very annoyed with me because she said it was the best one she'd ever tasted, not to blow my own trumpet. Chirp the second. Caleb Plummer and his blind daughter lived all alone by themselves, as the storybooks say, and my blessing with yours to back it, I hope, on the storybooks for saying anything in this workaday world. Caleb Plummer and his blind daughter lived all alone by themselves, in a little cracked nutshell of a wooden house which was, in truth, no better than a pimple on the prominent red brick nose of Gruff and Tackleton. The premises of Gruff and Tackleton were the great feature of the street, but you might have knocked down Caleb Plummer's dwelling with a hammer or two and carried off the pieces in a cart. If anyone who had done the dwelling house of Caleb Plummer the honour to miss it after such an inroad, it would have been no doubt to commend its demolition as a vast improvement. It stuck to the premises of Gruff and Tackleton like a barnacle to a ship's keel, or a snail to a door, or a little bunch of toadstools to the stem of a tree. But it was the germ from which the full-grown trunk of Gruff and Tackleton had sprung, and under its crazy roof the Gruff before last had, in some small way, made toys for a generation of old boys and girls who had played with them and found them out and broken them and gone to sleep. I have said that Caleb and his poor blind daughter lived there. I should have said that Caleb lived here and his poor blind daughter somewhere else, in an enchanted home of Caleb's furnishing, where scarcity and shabbiness were not, and trouble never entered. Caleb was no sorcerer, but in the only magic art that still remains to us, the magic of devoted, deathless love, nature had been the mistress of his study, and from her teachings all the wonder came. The blind girl never knew that the ceilings were discoloured, walls blotched and bare of plaster here and there, high crevices unstopped and widening every day, beams mouldering and tending downward. The blind girl never knew that iron was rusting, wood rotting, paper peeling off, the size and shape and true proportion of the dwelling withering away. The blind girl never knew what ugly shapes of delf and earthenware were on the board, that sorrow and faint-heartedness were in the house, that Caleb's scanty hairs were turning greyer and more grey before her sightless face. The blind girl never knew what they had a master, cold, exacting and uninterested, never knew that Tackleton was Tackleton in short, but lived in the belief of an eccentric humorist who loved to have his jest with them, and who, while he was the guardian angel of their lives, disdained to hear one word of thankfulness. And all was Caleb's doing, all the doing of her simple father. But he too had a cricket on his hearth, and listening sadly to its music when the motherless blind child was very young, that spirit had inspired him with the thought that even her great deprivation might be almost changed into a blessing, and the girl made happy by these little means. For all the cricket tribe are potent spirits, even though the people who hold converse with them do not know it, which is frequently the case. And there were not in the unseen world voices more gentle and more true that may be so implicitly relied on, or that they are so certain to give none but tenderest counsel, as the voices in which the spirits of the fireside on the hearth address themselves to humankind. Caleb and his daughter were at work together in their usual working room, which served them from their ordinary living room as well. And a strange place it was. There were houses in it, unfinished and finished, for dolls of all stations in life, suburban tenements for dolls of moderate means, kitchens and single apartments for dolls of lower classes, capital town residences of dolls of high estate. Some of these establishments were already furnished according to estimate, with a view to the convenience of dolls of limited income. Others could be fitted on the most expensive scale at a moment's notice, from whole shelves of chairs and tables, sofas, bedsteads, and upholstery. The nobility and gentry, and public in general, for whose accommodation these tenements were designed, lay here and there in baskets, staring up at the ceiling. But in denoting their degrees in society, and confining them to their respective stations, which experience shows to be lamentably difficult in real life, the makers of these dolls had far improved on nature, which is often froward and perverse. For they, not resting on such arbitrary marks as satin, cotton print, and bits of rag, had superadded striking personal differences which allowed of no mistake. Thus the doll lady of distinction had wax limbs of perfect symmetry, but only she and her compeers. And the next grade in the social scale being made of leather, and the next of the coarse linen stuff. As to the common people, they had just so many matches out of tinder boxes for their arms and legs, and there they were, established in their sphere at once, beyond the possibility of getting out of it. There were various other samples of his handicraft, besides dolls in Caleb Plummer's room. There were Noah's Arks, in which the birds and the beasts were an uncommonly tight fit, I assure you, though they could be crammed in anyhow at the roof and rattled and shaken into the smallest compass. By a bold poetical license, most of these Noah's Arks had knockers on the doors, inconsistent appendages perhaps, as suggestive of morning callers and a postman, yet a pleasant finish to the outside of the building. There were scores of melancholy little carts which, when the wheels went round, performed most doleful music. Many small fiddles, drums, and other instruments of torture, no end of cannon, shields, swords, spears, and guns. There were little tumblers in red breeches, incessantly swarming up high obstacles of red tape and coming down, head first on the other side. And there were innumerable old gentlemen of respectable, not to say venerable appearance, insanely flying over horizontal pegs, inserted for the purpose in their own street doors. There were beasts of all sorts, horses in particular of every breed, from the spotted barrel on 4 pegs with a small tippet for a mane, to the thoroughbred rocker on his highest mettle. As it would have been hard to count the dozens upon dozens of grotesque figures that were ever ready to commit all sorts of absurdities on the turning of a handle, so it would have been no easy task to mention any human folly, vice, or weakness that had not its type, immediate or remote, in Caleb Plummer's room. And not in an exaggerated form, for very little handles will move men and women to as strange performances as any toy was ever made to undertake. In the midst of all these objects, Caleb and his daughter sat at work. The blind girl as busy as a doll's dressmaker, Caleb painting and glazing the 4.4 of the 4. Caleb painting and glazing the 4-pair front of a desirable family mansion. The care imprinted in the lines of Caleb's face and his absorbed and dreamy manner, which would have set well on some alchemist or abstruse student, were at first sight an odd contrast to his occupation and the trivialities about him. But trivial things, invented and pursued for bread, became very serious matters of fact, and apart from this consideration, I am not at all prepared to say myself that if Caleb had been a Lord Chamberlain or a Member of Parliament or a lawyer or even a great speculator, he would have dealt in toys one whit less whimsical, while I have a very great doubt whether they would have been seen as harmless. "So you were out in the rain last night, father, in your beautiful new greatcoat," said Caleb's daughter. "I'm in my beautiful new greatcoat," answered Caleb, dancing towards a clothesline in the room, on which the sackcloth garment previously described as carefully hung up to dry. "How glad I am you brought it in, father." "And of such a tailor too," said Caleb. "Quite a fashionable tailor. It's too good for me." The blind girl rested from her work and laughed with delight. "Too good, father? What can be too good for you?" "I'm half ashamed to wear it, though," said Caleb, watching the effect of what he said upon her brightening face. "Upon my word, when I hear the boys and people say behind me, 'Hello, here's a swell,' I don't know which way to look. And when the beggar wouldn't go away last night, when I said I was a very common man, said, 'No, your honour, bless your honour, don't say that,' I was quite ashamed. I really felt as if I hadn't a right to wear it." Happy blind girl! How merry she was in her exultation. "I see you, father," she said, clasping her hands, "as plainly as if I had eyes I never want when you are with me. A blue coat." "Bright blue," said Caleb. Yes, bright blue," exclaimed the girl, turning up her radiant face. "The colour I can just remember in the blessed sky. You told me it was blue before. A bright blue coat." "Made loose to the figure," suggested Caleb. Made loose to the figure, cried the blind girl, laughing heartily. And in it, you, dear father, with your merry eye, your smiling face, your free step and your dark hair, looking so young and handsome. Hello, hello, said Caleb. I shall be vain presently. I think you are already, cried the blind girl, pointing at him in her glee. I know you, father. I find you out, you see. How different the picture in her mind from Caleb as he sat observing her. She had spoken of his free step. She was right in that. For years and years he had never once crossed that threshold at his own slow pace, but with a footfall counterfeited for her ear. And never had he, when his heart was heaviest, forgotten the light tread that was to render hers so cheerful and courageous. Heaven knows, but I think Caleb's vague bewilderment of manner may have half originated in his having confused himself about himself and everything around him for the love of his blind daughter. How could the little man be otherwise than bewildered after labouring for so many years to destroy his own identity and that of all the objects that had any bearing on it? There we are, said Caleb, falling back a pace or two to form the better judgment of his work. As near as a real thing as sixpence worth of halfpence is to sixpence. What a pity that whole front of the house opens at once. If there was only a staircase on it now, and regular doors to the rooms to go in it, but that's the worst of my calling. I'm always deluding myself and swindling myself. You're speaking quite softly. You're not tired, father? Tired? Echoed Caleb with a great burst of animation. What should tire me, Bertha? I was never tired. What does it mean? To give greater force to his words, he checked himself in an involuntary imitation of two half-length stretching and yawning figures on the mantel-shelf, who were represented as in one eternal state of weariness from the waist upwards, and hummed a fragment of a song. It was a bacchanalian song, something about a sparkling bowl. He sang it with an assumption of a devil-may-care voice that made his face 1,000 times more meagre and more thoughtful than ever. What? You're singing, are you? Said Tackleton, putting his head in the door. Go it! I can't sing. Nobody would have suspected him of it. He hadn't what is generally termed a singing face by any means. I can't afford to sing, said Tackleton. I'm glad you can, and hope you can afford to work too. Hardly time for both, I should think. If only you could see him, Bertha, how he's winking at me, whispered Caleb. Such a man to joke. You'd think you hadn't known him. He was in earnest, wouldn't you? The girl smiled and nodded. The bird that can sing and won't sing must be made to sing, they say. The bird that can sing and won't sing must be made to sing, they say, grumbled Tackleton. What about the owl that can't sing and oughtn't to sing and will sing? Is there anything that he should be made to do? The extent to which he's winking at this moment, whispered Caleb to his daughter. Oh, my gracious! Always merry and light-hearted with us, cried the smiling Bertha. Oh, you're there, are you? Answered Tackleton. Poor idiot. He really did believe she was an idiot, and he founded the belief, I can't say whether consciously or not, upon her being fond of him. Well, and being there, how are you? Said Tackleton in his grudging way. Oh, well, quite well, and as happy as even you can wish me to be. As happy as you would make the whole world if you could. Poor idiot, muttered Tackleton. No gleam of reason, not a gleam. The blind girl took his hand and kissed it, held it for a moment in her own two hands, and laid her cheek against it tenderly before releasing it. There was such unspeakable affection and such fervent gratitude in the act that Tackleton himself was moved to say in a milder growl than usual, What's the matter now? I stood it close to my pillow when I went to sleep last night, and remembered it in my dreams, and when the day broke and the glorious red sun, father, red in the mornings and evenings, Bertha, said poor Caleb, with a woeful glance at his employer. When it rose, and the bright light I almost feared to strike myself against in walking came into the room, I turned the little tree towards it, and blessed heaven for making things so precious, and blessed you for sending them to cheer me. Bedlam broke loose, said Tackleton under his breath. We shall arrive at the strait waistcoat and muffler soon. We're getting on. Caleb, with his hands hooked loosely in each other, stared vacantly before him while his daughter spoke, as if he really were uncertain, I believe he was, whether Tackleton had done anything to deserve her thanks or not. If he could have been a perfectly free agent at that moment required, on pain of death, to kick the toy merchant or fall at his feet according to his merits, I believe it would have been an even chance which course he would have taken. Yet Caleb knew that with his own hands he had brought the little rose tree home for her so carefully, and that with his own lips he had forged the innocent deception which should help to keep her from suspecting how very much, he every day denied himself that she might be the happier. Bertha, said Tackleton, assuming for the nonce a little cordiality, come here. Oh, I can come straight to you. You needn't guide me, she rejoined. Shall I tell you a secret, Bertha? If you will, he answered eagerly. How bright the darkened face, how adorned with light the listening head. This is the day on which little, what's-her-name, the spoilt child, Perrybingle's wife, pays her regular visit to you, makes her fantastic picnic here, ain't it? Said Tackleton with a strong expression of distaste for the whole concern. Yes, replied Bertha, this is the day. I thought so, said Tackleton. I should like to join the party. Do you hear that, father? Cried the blind girl in ecstasy. Yes, I hear it, murmured Caleb, with the fixed look of a sleepwalker. But I don't believe it. It's one of my lies, I've no doubt. You see, I want to bring the Peerybingles a little more into company with May Fielding, said Tackleton. I'm going to be married to May. Married? Cried the blind girl, starting from him. She's such a confounded idiot, muttered Tackleton. Well, I'm afraid she's never comprehended me. Bertha, married, church, parson, clerk, beadle, glass coach, bells, breakfast, bride cake, favours, marrowbones, cleavers, and all the rest of the tomfoolery. A wedding, you know, a wedding. Don't you know what a wedding is? I know, replied the girl in a gentle tone. I understand. Do you? Muttered Tackleton. It's more than I expected. Well, on that account, I want to join the party and to bring May and her mother. I'll send a little something or other before the afternoon, a cold leg of mutton or some comfortable trifle of that sort. You'll expect me? Yes, she answered. She had dropped her head and turned away, and so stood with her hands crossing, musing. I don't think you will, muttered Tackleton, looking at her. Well, you seem to have forgotten all about it already. Caleb? I may venture to say I'm here, I suppose, thought Caleb. Sir? Take sure she don't forget that I've been saying to her. She never forgets, returned Caleb. It's one of the few things she ain't clever in. Every man thinks his own geese swans, observed the toy merchant with a shrug. Poor devil. Having delivered himself of which remark with infinite contempt, old Gruff and Tackleton withdrew. Bertha remained where he had left her, lost in meditation. The gaiety had vanished from her downcast face, and it was very sad. 3 or 4 times she shook her head as if bewailing some remembrance or some loss, but her sorrowful reflections found no vent in words. It was not until Caleb had been occupied some time in yoking a team of horses to a wagon by the summary process of nailing the harness to the vital parts of their bodies that she drew near to his working stool and, sitting down beside him, said, Father, I'm lonely in the dark. I want my eyes, my patient, willing eyes. Here they are, said Caleb, always ready. They are more yours than mine, Bertha. Any hour in the hour 24. What shall your eyes do for you, dear? Look around the room, Father. All right, said Caleb. No sooner said than done, Bertha. Tell me about it. It's the same as usual, said Caleb. homely but very snug. The gay colours on the walls, the bright flowers on the plates and dishes, the shining wood where there are beams and panels, the general cheerfulness and neatness of the building make it very pretty. Cheerful and neat it was wherever Bertha's hands could busy themselves. But nowhere else were cheerfulness and neatness possible in the old crazy shed which Caleb's fancy so transformed. You have your working dress on, and you're not as gallant as when you wear the handsome coat, said Bertha, touching him. Not quite so gallant, answered Caleb. Pretty brisk, though. Father, said the blind girl, drawing close to his side and stealing one arm round his neck, tell me something about May. Is she very fair? She is indeed, said Caleb. And she was indeed. It was quite a rare thing to Caleb not to have to draw his own invention. Her hair is dark, said Bertha pensively. Darker than mine? Her voice is sweet and musical, I know. I've often loved to hear it. Her shape... Oh, there's not a doll's in all the room to equal it, said Caleb. And her eyes... He stopped. For Bertha had drawn closer around his neck, and from that arm that clung to him came a warning pressure which he understood too well. He coughed, a moment hammered for a moment, then fell back upon the song about the sparkling bowl, his infallible resource in all such difficulties. Our friend, Father, our benefactor, I'm never tired, you know, of hearing about him. Now, was I ever? She said hastily. Of course not, answered Caleb, and with reason. Ah, with how much reason? Cried the blind girl, with such fervency that Caleb, though his motives were so pure, could not endure to meet her face, but dropped his eyes, as if she could have read them in his innocent deceit. Then tell me again about him, dear father, said Bertha, many times again. His face is benevolent, kind and tender, honest and true, I'm sure it is. The manly heart that tries to cloak all favours with a show of roughness and unwillingness beats in its very look and glance. And makes it noble, added Caleb in his quiet desperation. Makes it noble, cried the blind girl. He's older than May, father. Yes, said Caleb reluctantly. He's a little older than May, but that don't signify. Oh, yes, father, to be his patient companion in infirmity and age, to be his gentle nurse in sickness and his constant friend in suffering and sorrow, to know no weariness in working for his sake, to watch him, tend him, sit beside his bed, to talk to him awake and pray for him to sleep. What privileges these would be, what opportunities proving all her truth and devotion to him. Would she do all this, dear father? No doubt of it, said Caleb. I love her, father. I love her from my soul, exclaimed the blind girl. And saying so, she laid her poor blind face on Caleb's shoulder, and so wept and wept that he was almost sorry to have brought that tearful happiness upon her. So, folks, page 191. Let's make a note of that. Bertha. Yeah. After this, we cut back to the Peerybingles. I can't remember where this one goes. It's quite a roller coaster here. Yeah, so we got some good 40 pages to read next time. It's going to be a bit of a longer session. Cliffhanger indeed. Cheers to that. Oh. Yeah. Poor Bertha. Oh, I'm not sure. That's where it goes with that. Actually, I think maybe she's actually in love with the old Gruff and Trot Gringle. Actually, She's jealous of May, as was my reading on that. But maybe, I don't know. Cool cliffhanger. There's more to come. Excuse me. Yeah. Who knows? Um, I had a lovely stream, Valeria. Thank you. Um, well, I can be affiliate judge of D actually, as it happens. I just haven't done the I haven't done the relevant thing yet. So thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. I really do. Um, yeah, yeah. I have to go through a few things. Yeah, I know, I know. I've talked to Logan about it and stuff. So I'm yeah, I shall get on it. Anyway, guys, I'm going to cut out a chat pretty soon tonight because it's been quite a long day for me. Um, yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad it's fewer buttons everywhere. Yeah, there we go. Bedtime story with Dadzig. And the thing now, of course, is to stay off the phones and turn the blue light off, um, which we all know is easier said than done. Yeah. Well, it's not quite done yet because we're going to read Tuesday, and that is Sixth Night, which for many people also, of course, is when Christmas is celebrated, 12th night. It's too early for that in America. Maybe it's nap time. I don't know. Or maybe it can be the pre-lunch, post-breakfast chill. Um, yeah, Ailish. Is it Ailish or Alish? What do you prefer? But I'm happy. Yeah, I'm very happy that I'm pretty good at sight reading. Um, that's one a lot of the engineers in voice studios appreciate that as well. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Yum, yum, yum. Yum, 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 yum. Chirp, 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 chirp. Um, cool. Um, is there anything else we want to chub, 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 chubby, chub, chubster? That's what she said. Is there anything else we uh, is there anything else we want to chat about before I bid you all good night? Tip tap tip tap tap tip tap tap tip tap tip tap tap well, Mango's not here, so I won't say goodnight to Mango. Um, well, yes, I know. Uh, uh, who are you as chronically online as I think you are? Some days, yes. Um, I certainly try to check in a couple of times a day on X, but I also try to be wary of my usage. Indeed. Good night and sleep. Good sleep to all of you. And so whoever. Thank you, Zinwe. Zunui? Sihenui. How do I just call you Z. Um, yes, a newer setup. He does reply to my pestering messages on Instagram. I do occasionally do that, yes. Chronically online? No, none of us. Happy expanding. That's what she said. Um, you're all tucked in, tuck, 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 and around the feet as well, right? Unless you don't like that. And pecks on foreheads. There we go. Um, uh, thanks for another cozy evening. Dobranoc. What? Prickly. All right, I'm gonna sign off.